So this entire week, I will be reacting to Decision Day. So this entire week, every day, I'm going to dedicate each day to the results of Decision Day. That was on Sunday. So today, I'm going to talk about the Ohio boys, Columbus and Cincy. Tomorrow, I'll talk about the Cascadia boys and how none of the Cascadia boys made the playoffs, which is surprising, very surprising. But today, I'm getting to the Ohio boys, starting with Columbus. Before the arrival of Cucho Hernandez this season, the Columbus Crew was one of the teams that I really did not give a damn about. They were one of those pioneer teams that I knew existed, but they didn't really come across my mind as a team that was really important. And their play on the field was proving that before the arrival of Cucho Hernandez. Then once Hernandez arrived during the summer transfer window, I just noticed something different about this team. This team looked like a legitimate MLS team. Before that, they were looking like a USL League One team. But it just seemed like with the arrival of Cucho Hernandez, this team just promoted themselves. And the whole entire team started playing better. And for the 2 seasons that I've been watching MLS, I've never noticed or witnessed a team that just drastically changes by the arrival of one player. I remember at one point of the season, like Columbus was as high as a 5th seed in the East. Columbus really looked like a major contender. So to see Columbus be eliminated from playoff contention, losing to an Orlando team who I strongly believe that Columbus is better than, a team that I strongly believe that Columbus should have beaten, to see them lose to Orlando yesterday, it was very disappointing. And this season really turned into a failure. The season started off as a failure and it ended as a failure. And so many people are wondering, like, what happened to Columbus? Those who haven't paid much attention to Columbus. Honestly, I myself, because I'm not a Columbus beat writer, I'm not a Columbus beat reporter, I haven't paid deeply attention to the team similar to how I would if I was a beat reporter or a beat writer or a Columbus fan. But from the outside looking in, a guy who's a spectator, a guy on the fence, I witnessed a team that didn't play to win many games. Columbus, to me, even with Cucho Hernandez, looked like a team that settled for too many ties. And in reality, they did, which is why they're not in the playoffs today, which is why they'll be sitting at home this fall, which is why they'll be going trick or treating on Halloween Day instead of preparing for a playoff game. And it's very disappointing because similar to MLS fans, soccer fans missing out on seeing a star in Joseph Martinez in the playoffs, we're going to miss out on seeing another star in Cucho Hernandez. That's why I posted on social media. I directly responded to the Columbus Twitter account after they posted their final score. I said, Cucho Hernandez not being in the playoffs is unacceptable. You didn't bring Cucho Hernandez in from Europe for you to be sitting at home in the fall. You did not bring Cucho Hernandez from Europe to watch other teams play in the playoffs. Now, I don't know the management group, the name of the management group, the ownership group in Columbus, but somebody has to pay. I don't know if it's going to be the owner, which is usually not the owner, the GM, the sporting director, the head coach, the coaching staff, some of the players. Somebody has to be punished because Columbus ownership group, Columbus Crew ownership group, you have to send a message that missing the playoffs is unacceptable. And I know that you are serious about making the playoffs. I'm confident that you, Columbus ownership group, that you are serious about winning championships. Because if you were not, you would not have brought Cucho Hernandez in from Europe. So that's how I know the ownership group is not the problem. So now we're looking at the management, the GM, the sporting director, the training staff, the medical staff, the head coach, the coaching staff. That coaching staff settled for way too many ties. Since the month of July, Columbus has 10 draws. 10 draws out of 18 games? That's coaching. It's not ownership. It's not management. It's coaching and some players. It's coaching and players. Either the coach didn't draw up the right game plan, or the players didn't execute, or the coaching staff didn't adjust to change, like second half changes, or the players did not adjust to different defensive schemes. Now, I'm not a defensive guy, so I'm not going to heavily say Columbus didn't have a great defense, because in my opinion, defense in soccer it makes the game extremely boring. But one thing I will say when it comes to defense is that when Columbus did have a lead, the team did not hold they did not hold the lead. Whenever the team had a lead, the team did a terrible job holding the lead. And the thing about the leads, it wasn't big leads. It wasn't 2 or 3 goal leads. It was just 1 goal lead. How do you become complacent when you just have a 1 goal lead and all the other team needs to do is score 1 goal and the game is tied? So it's coaching and it's players. And this is the thing about playing for ties. The thing I noticed from these past 2 seasons, the 2021 and the 2022 MLS season, teams that play for ties tend to become content. Teams that play for tie, they tend not to be aggressive. Teams that play for ties, they're not tenacious. Teams that play for tie is when they're faced with adversity and they're faced with a challenge, they tend to lay down. Teams that play for tie, they don't know how to fight back to win the game. They're not competitive. Teams that play for ties are not competitive. And looking at the few times I watched this Columbus team, the few guys that are really Columbus, of course, there's Cucho Hernandez, and there's also Etienne and Zelarayan. But I honestly never heard of the other 2 guys until Cucho arrived. Listen, the ownership group, one thing I know about the Columbus ownership group is that they did not bring in Cucho Hernandez to tie games. They brought in Cucho Hernandez to win the game. Now, some of you people can criticize Cucho all you want about not passing the ball or playing good defense. But one thing you can't say about him is the Columbus Crew team would not have been in playoff contention on decision day if it wasn't for Cucho. Columbus would have been down at the bottom, right along their buddy DC United, if it wasn't for Cucho Hernandez arriving. This whole notion that defense wins championships, that's the baby boomer era. That's the old conservative European soccer era. We have moved past that. Points wins championships. Being aggressive wins championships. Teams that don't settle for ties wins championships. And the European teams are starting to realize that. Every now and then I watch English Premier League highlights on YouTube. Every now and then I watch a little bit of La Liga. And the teams in those leagues, the top teams in those leagues, they're changing their style of play. They're starting to be more aggressive. They realize the change in the era that's taking place. So you fans that are complaining about defense and all these boring defensive schemes that many new generation sports fans don't give a damn about, you are still stuck in the past. And it's time for you to catch up, because you're about to get left behind. Defense does not win championships in new era soccer. Points, teams being aggressive, teams being tenacious, and teams that play to win the game. You see, the thing about putting too much emphasis on defense, that will lead teams to play the tighter game. Defense in soccer causes teams to be passive. Defense in soccer, it causes teams not to take risks. They play it safe. We don't need to see soccer teams playing safe. Teams that play safe in soccer, that will make soccer boring. When teams are just uptight, trying to prevent the other team from scoring, they're just trying to play it safe, making sure they're in the right defensive formation. That is extremely boring. We don't want to see that, especially in a country like America where sports fans have multiple options. You got NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, all going on at the same time as the MLS playoffs. And you're talking about defense? You MLS fans got to start looking at the bigger picture. Defense is not good for American soccer. It'll work in Europe, the old conservative European way. It'll work over there, but it's not going to work over here because this sport is bigger than just soccer. You're competing against other leagues in a country that is oversaturated with sports. So Columbus, somebody has to be punished. We know Cucho Hernandez is not going to be punished. Cucho Hernandez is not the problem. You got to do something about that coaching staff, the scouting department, the management department, sporting director, head coach, maybe trade, get rid of some of the players. But something has to be done. Because as long as Cucho Hernandez is playing for Columbus, we need to see Columbus in the playoffs. Because we need to see Cucho Hernandez in the playoffs. So because Columbus, you missed the playoffs, my grade for you this season is an F. It's a big fat F. Because you're already going to get the F. Like if Cucho Hernandez didn't arrive, you were going to be at the bottom. Like I said, with DC United come decision day, you weren't even going to be a playoff contender. You're already going to be out. With the arrival of Cucho Hernandez and the way the team played, it gave the fans false hope. False hope that this team was a playoff contender. False hope that this team was a championship contender. All of those high expectations went down the drain because you had a coaching staff and a player that was settling for ties. They were not playing to win the game. They were playing to tie the game. And when you play to tie the game, you become complacent and you become passive. When you play to tie the game, you become complacent, lazy, and passive. You don't play to win the game. You just play it safe. You don't take risks. You're not aggressive. And that what makes the game boring. So Columbus ownership group, you know what you got to do. Somebody has to pay for this. Somebody has to be punished. I don't know who, but somebody has to be punished. Because Cucho Hernandez not in the playoffs, that is bad for the MLS. It's unacceptable, and it should never happen again. It should have happened next season or the season after that. As long as Cucho is on Columbus, we need to see Columbus in the playoffs because we need to see Cucho Hernandez in the playoffs. He's a bona fide star, and his play on the field is what the MLS needs to showcase in its playoff.